To me, the biggest transformation is somebody walking in and saying that I want to work on myself. My mission remains the same to help people reconnect to themselves. This is something I want to dedicate my life towards.
Our guest today has dedicated her career to answering a question that affects every one of us. How do we help the body feel safe enough to heal, grow, and thrive? Blending cutting-edge neuroscience with the wisdom of yoga and embodied movement, she has helped thousands of people better understand their nervous systems and build practical tools for emotional regulation, resilience, and lasting well-being. She's a nervous system educator, the founder of Goddess Yoga Teacher Training, and an MSc Applied Neuroscience candidate at King's College London. At the heart of her work is empowering women to reconnect with their bodies. Through Goddess Yoga, Kundalini Yoga, womb healing, spiritual coaching, chakra balancing, and transformational retreats, she creates deeply immersive spaces where women can heal emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Her work has supported women through fertility journeys, motherhood, emotional trauma, relationship challenges, and profound personal transformation, helping them rediscover safety, strength, and connection within themselves. She's also the creator of NSRP, an innovative method designed to help shift the body's physiological state in just minutes by integrating both bottom-up and top-down approaches to nervous system regulation. Most recently, she released The Regulated Body, a book that explores the fascinating connection between the nervous system and our relationship with food. It combines the science behind stress, cravings, digestion, and satiety with a 28-day regulation protocol and over 40 nervous system informed recipes designed to help readers create lasting change from the inside out. She also hosts the podcast Regulated with Angeli, which is available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, where she explores how women can move from dysregulation to deep self-trust, not through mindset alone, but by retraining both the body and the brain in real time. Please join me in welcoming our guest today, Angeli Jagota. Hello and welcome to today's episode of the podcast. I'm joined with an amazing guest, Miss Angeli. Angeli, how are you today?
Very well. Thank you so much. Blessed to be here.
Awesome. So I gave the audience a bit of an introduction about you, but can you please tell the audience a bit more about yourself?
I currently am a neuroscience student. I'm also a yoga teacher, been teaching for the past 12 years, a womb healing practitioner, author, creator of Nervous System Reset Protocol. So over the past 15 years, I've been fascinated by one question: what helps people truly heal? And that is exactly what my work is. So my work sits at the intersection of neuroscience, nervous system regulation, embodiment. Spirituality is a huge part of it, and most important, human transformation. And through all of this, my mission remains the same: to help people reconnect to themselves.
So it's great to have you on today's episode of the podcast where we're going to be talking about your journey, your stories, your voices, anything you would like the audience to learn from. So you're in the space of yoga and healing work, and in a way, you're somewhat passionate about it. But when did you realize that yoga and healing work were more than just a passion, but your life's purpose?
I don't think there was a definite moment where I had that realization. However, when I saw people coming in with overwhelm, anxiety, disconnect, and then they would leave the place feeling more clear, more centered, that is where I felt that this is something I want to dedicate my life towards.
But how did that all start? Like when you first started and people started coming to you, what is it that you tell them? Or is there like a certain message that is different from each of them that you tailor to where they are in their life right now? But how do you figure out what it is that's what they need to hear? in their different healing journey?
So the sessions that I do are very, very personalized because imagine somebody is coming with, let's say, money issues. Somebody is coming with issues for the body. Somebody is coming with grief of losing a family member. So the foundation, the anchor is to help them feel safe. That is the very first primal, pivotal area to work on. Because once they feel safe, their nervous system calms down, it relaxes. And then they have full access to the feelings that they are feeling. Like I tell people that you must sit down with your feelings, have a cup of coffee or tea or whatever you like, and have a sit down with your feelings, because many times we don't sit with the feelings. We want to sit with people to talk about our feelings and just go ping pong about what he said or she said, but it's really you creating a sacred space where you can feel everything unadulterated, unfiltered, and see the dark and the light shades of you in that and everything in between. I feel that is so important to actually sit. And that is where, it circles back to regulation. So regulation is the first step. And it's more like, they are walking the journey and I'm simply walking beside them. So I never tell people, do this, don't do this. They're like, this is what I want to do. And then my response will be, okay, if you could think differently, what are the other options? What are the other perspectives? What are the other possibilities? And once they are able to navigate through an ocean of other possibilities and perspectives, suddenly, the brain really stretches out and expands, and you're able to think from more soul-centered perspective rather than ego-centered perspective. And that is a game changer in itself.
So in a way, it starts with them being more self-aware about how they feel and their regulation in terms of their everyday life. And in a way, you guide them in terms of the right path they need to take, whether it's in their healing journey or their self-improvement journey. Is that how you kind of guide your clients?
Yeah, identifying, that's number one. Identify where you are, not identify what the problem is. Because the other thing, as we are talking, it just came to my mind was that it's not about who said. What matters is what was being said. There's a huge difference because want to, everybody in your life is coming for a purpose that even they are not aware of. So, for example, somebody hurt you. We are projecting all that disheartening energy towards that person. But what if we looked at the purpose behind that person's presence in our lives? That would change everything about how we view life.
Do you ever find yourself, like you mentioned, the people that come in and out of your life, like wondering and then sitting down with yourself, like how you recommend others to sit down with their feelings, like what this person taught you, but have you ever gotten to a point where it was like a wall? You're not really sure why they came in your life and then what they taught you, but in a way they had to come in because it was almost like it was destined to happen.
Oh, yes. Sometimes then we are in the midst of stuff and emotions are like a roller coaster and we can't make sense out of it. At least the one thing we keep telling our brain is that I know there is something good in it. I know this is happening for my growth and evolution, and keep up with that. Because sometimes it's very hard to dissect the situation because we are so emotionally charged at that moment with either the outcome of the situation or the person involved in the situation. So all we need to really take in and understand is that I know there is growth and good in it. It'll showcase itself to me when I am ready, but I do know there is good and growth in it.
Now, on this topic of timing and growth and your journey, one of the key important parts of your journey is when you've released your book. So previously you've released one, and right now, actually quite recently, maybe a week or two ago, you actually released your next book, which is The Regulated Body, which I gave a bit of a description in the introduction. In terms of timing and where you are in your journey, why do you think it was important for you to write this book, The Regulated Body? And what are some of the key takeaways you want people to get when they read this book?
So I have to send you one book. So the moment you open the book, I actually have a copy here. So the moment you open the book, the first page says, "For my mother, thank you for unwaveringly becoming the beginning of this work." This is years ago. She was having more medicines than food. And that made me wonder, what is happening? And then that was really my interest. And also thanks to my mom that, back in the day when I was 16, she had enrolled me into this cooking school. So for me, going in the kitchen and cooking comes very, very naturally because I've been cooking since I was 16. I'm 45 now. And so going back to mom, which was many, many years ago, I was like, what if I could help tweak her food a little bit here and there? What would happen? And we started doing that. We started managing, a little bit of herbs and spices and managing the protein and the carbs and fats and little bit with the timing and the portion of all these different food components. And slowly but surely, she started coming off her meds. That was very reassuring that food is medicine and food must not be abused because then the body has to go through a lot to be able to, build up the energy. So two things happen. Either you use the energy that the body has created to digest the food, or eat the food that gives your body more energy. And that is where this book took birth. And also a little bit of personal story. I lost my brother last year in October, and he was going through some physical issues. And that is also where I felt that I really want to help people into their plate and reconnect with the roots. You don't necessarily need a pill as a replacement for what goes onto your plate. And yeah, so that has been the big underlying, how do I say, inspiration for the book to come about. And the next is also, there's so much that we women feel we are broken, we need fixing, always self-judgment. Like wherever you are right now in your body, be happy and peaceful because there's somebody lying down on the hospital bed who couldn't care much about how they look or whether they have gray hair or black hair or whether they can do certain activities or not. They are fighting for that next breath. And here we are looking at all these aesthetics. So I feel this book helps them reconnect to their body through food. Food becomes a medium where they are able to soothe their senses rather than stimulate their senses. Because food was not meant to stimulate the senses, it was meant to soothe us. And the food industry has somehow taken us on a different tour. So I hope this book brings us back to the basics and the beginning.
So in a way, like you mentioned, this book has been fueled and inspired by your family, but in a way you want for people to realize the importance of food and how each week in your book is designed around the nervous system, which is built on safety the first week, stability, strength, and identity. And you mentioned a bit about your journey, how you started getting into cooking when you were around 16. So the audience is probably curious, what are some of the foods that you like to cook and put and like give to other people? What are the menus and recipes do you recommend, or like what are your favorite foods that you like to eat the most?
I I love any and everything that's really simple. I love cooking my salads. So anybody who's attended my Kundalini Yoga classes that I run on weekly basis from home, which is Wednesday evenings at 5 p.m. and Fridays at 10 a.m. So salads is a big part of it. Khichdi is my that's my love. You throw in all the veggies, and I'm a vegetarian. I love experimenting food. Like just this morning, I marinated tofu with um, Greek yogurt, added dill in it, and nutritional yeast, and some Indian herbs and spices. So I feel you you meet you in the plate. There's a part of your character that you eat, and that is what I feel is so important. Like you can have a basic tofu or a tempeh, and then when you roast it, or whether you grill it or bake it or stir fry it, I feel each makes you feel whole. It's an experience. Cooking is an experience. Baking is an experience. To me, especially during COVID, I feel I was baking a lot at that time. And to me, baking is therapy. Cooking is therapy. I have chants going on in the background. I'm always singing some mantra and I'm cooking. To me, that's therapy. That's healing. That's how close it is to me. And I love everything vegetarian. So everything and everything is favorite.
And it's great to see how all of this ties in because with healing, with baking that you mentioned, cooking, it's all about experience. And your character really shows with what you make and what you put on the plate. And if we connect this to healing and spirituality and your yoga, which you mentioned you do, where should someone who's watching this, if they're completely new to yoga, healing, or spirituality, start? How would you recommend them?
I would say start small. Back in the day, I remember when I started yoga, and funny enough, I was introduced to yoga mm, about 18 years ago through a Swiss friend of mine, which is so funny. And all I did was at home, I would roll out the mat and lie down in Shavasana, which is deep relaxation. And to me, that was yoga. Or I would just roll out the mat and do a side stretch. And that was it, maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Now that I know so much about how the brain works, the neuroscience aspect of it, I realize that what I was doing back then was sowing the seed of who I have become now as a yoga teacher, stepping on the mat for 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 10 minutes every day, simply daily. That's the big thing. Daily discipline. Do daily. This is like the most important thing I would say. Become aware. Notice three things: body, breath, thought. If this is all you could do, that's yoga. Because many times, we are trained to think yoga means you step on the mat, you do pretzel poses. Yoga is also what you do off the mat, the way you breathe when somebody is talking to you that you don't like about them or yourself. Notice how your body, becomes a little smaller when you don't feel you're creating an impact, or you have more powerful energy surrounding you and you feel you're shrinking. What is happening in your body? You notice that. That is yoga. What kind of thoughts are coming into your headspace, let alone your heart? That is yoga too. We must, stretch the definition of what really yoga is. It is union. It is the union from a finite to the infinite. So, how does every conversation, every interaction with yourself and the people around you merges the gap between the finite and the infinite you? That's yoga.
The daily discipline that you mentioned when someone wants to get new to something, whether it's yoga, spirituality, or it can be anything, I think it's relatable to anything. And you mentioned and touched upon your journey as well, how you started and where you've come to until now. So how has your healing journey influenced the way you support others today, and how do you feel you've grown from when you first started until now?
Humility is a big word for me. I remember my spiritual journey started with Shiv Yoga. And Babaji always talked about, you know, simplify yourself. In Hindi, he would say, uh, become a sadhak, sadhlo, you know. Sadhlo means simplify yourself. And he focused a lot because the more simple you become is the sign that the more spiritual you are, which I used to think like, oh, but then you know so much and then you want to share so much. But as the years have passed on, I've realized that what he said was so important. I feel the more I have attained or achieved, the more simple I have become. It has made me more humble and also so much more patient. I feel you really patient to listen to what the universe has to say to you rather than what you want to do with your own life. And I also feel that each day, the day is getting lesser of your lifetime on this planet. So you got to earn it. And to be able to earn it, you have to be able to listen, which, brings me back. I have to share this in Japji Sahib, which is part of Kundalini Yoga. We do Japji Sahib 5 a.m. in the morning during sadhanas. So in that, there is this beautiful word called suniye, means deep listening. And it is so important. Imagine if you could just sit and deeply listen to that inner wisdom, which is so ancient and which is meant just for you. It's like you enter the spiritual library that has all the volumes, all the chapters of all your lifetimes. And to which also Babaji says that you be the book, you be the reader. Because all the gyan, all the wisdom is within you.
So in a way, that means the ownership and your healing journey, like you mentioned, sitting down with yourself and this reflection is all starts with you. And you mentioned about when you talked about the regulated body, that means it all starts with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have people around you, they become catalysts, they become inspiration, they become transformative messengers, some become triggers. And how do you take the ownership of your response towards all of that and make the best of it at the same time?
So if we talk about NSRP, which is something that I mentioned in the introduction as well, what does NSRP look like in practice? And what's one small technique people who are no matter very far in their healing journey or just getting started, what is one technique that they can use starting today?
Mm-hmm. So NSRP is Nervous System Reset or Regulation Protocol. As the name suggests, it helps you to move from survival to regulation, connection, resilience. So it's a combination of nervous system education, interoception, where you connect with the feelings in your body in real time, breath work, embodiment practices, self-reflection, and daily regulation tools. So if there's one takeaway that audience can possibly take from here is name, notice, nurture. So name what you're feeling, notice where you feel in the body, and nurture what would support me right now. So once you do that, you are moving from reacting automatically to responding consciously.
But before you kind of also give this as a takeaway for my audience, can you please talk about like why deep breathing or somatic or any of these techniques are really important in their healing journey when it comes to them being stressed, overwhelmed, or like you mentioned, naming how they're feeling, and how can you teach them? Like, can you give us like a bit of a teaser or example of how effective deep breathing or deep breathing in general may go or somatic?
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about polyvagal theory, which is a big part in the neuroscience. Mm, there are three aspects, which is so it is ventral vagal system, then we have sympathetic, and then the last one is where we go into a total shutdown. So what happens? So imagine, think for yourself, shut down. What is happening? Nothing. You want to run away, you become numb, we become indifferent to situations. And how do we breathe? We even forget that we are breathing. Or even the breath is very, very shallow. We are not even focusing on the breath because that threat is too big for us to breathe into. Then the second layer is the sympathetic nervous system, which is fight, flight, freeze, fawn. You're fighting something, or you are running away, or you freeze in the moment, or fawn, staying very subdued to be able to maintain harmony around you. Now, notice in that scenario, what's the breath like? Then is our natural state, which is the ventral vagal, which is at the heart center. So, whenever we bring the energy and our breath to the heart center, that is where the waves of breathing are coming. Now, when we breathe, especially the extended breath work, there is a lot of research behind it, and a lot of neuroscientists have done work extensively on this, that extended exhale is what brings you into the ventral vagal, which is right in your heart as per the polyvagal theory. So when you are able to have extended exhales, which is a big part of the breath work, then you are more present, then you are more clear, then you are more available to whatever is here right now. In that, you pause the triggers of your past and the anxiety of your future. If that's one thing I could share, it's exactly this.
But you know, healing in itself, it begins at different stages and different parts of life. And for a lot of people, it's fueled by different motives, and everyone has their own like reason why they start their healing journey or get into healing. But if we look at one common thing, where do you think healing truly begins?
Healing begins when you're ready. Healing begins when you ask for help. Healing begins when life situations, circumstances sort of force you to surrender. When you understand that I cannot control anymore. Yeah, because healing cannot happen in the same room where ego lives.
I think it also goes back to what you mentioned about like how all of us, we were talking before this episode was being filmed, that we're all created equal, but the thing that separates us, that what you said was the ego and self-belief.
So We all are born as one. What separates us from everybody else in the room is our ego and our belief systems. Because what I believe, what you believe, or somebody listening to us believes might not be the same. And that is where one becomes two. And the moment one becomes two, it also gives birth to judgment sometimes. It also gives birth to I and you, and he and she and them, which then brings us into he said, she said. So that continuity of universal consciousness, it gets tarnished a little bit. So rather than bringing those sort of differences together at the center, we become centered with our own differences.
And on a similar note, you've mentioned that that is something that you've noticed when you have these conversations and you go into different rooms, that one becomes two when you see it and you feel it around people. But when you're being around people, the great thing is that you can connect with them and you can see how they've grown in terms of their transformation. What has been the most powerful transformation you've witnessed in the women that you've worked with?
To me, the biggest transformation is somebody walking in and saying that I want to work on myself. To me, that's huge because it takes a lot, and a lot to actually come up and say where, you feel that I want to work on myself to become a better person. I want to work on myself to become a better provider towards my family. I want to be a happier person and curating and creating a life that they truly have designed, sitting with divinity within themselves rather than through a space of duality. To me, that is the biggest gift. So rather than talking individually about my clients, I feel this is something that I see across all the people that I've worked with is their hunger to become better. And better doesn't mean that you need to go out in the world and create this and create that. To become a better person for themselves so they can have a better understanding of their patterns and programmings and what triggers them, what transforms them. And as we spoke about it, to take 100% ownership of whatever has happened, is happening, and will happen.
In your perspective, what do you think separates the people who have that hunger and come to you and say, I want to work on myself, I want to better myself, compared to those who kind of come to you and then you kind of guide them? What do you think separates them, like in terms of?
The one thing that just instantly popped up when you threw out that question was self-judgment and self-compassion. Like that just says everything because the ones who resist the growth are judgmental either of the growth of other people or judgmental of where they are right now and they don't want to grow, let's say. And on the other hand, the ones who come have compassion even for the people who have judgment because then they're like, okay, they are on their journey, and whenever they will you know let the moment happen for them, it will happen, and it's okay. So people who are truly on a healing journey are people with so much compassion. Again, I'm not saying tolerance, there's a huge difference. Compassion is you let people be who they want to be by not having you adapt to who they want you to be. That's compassion.
So this podcast, as you know, is all about unique voices, stories worth sharing, and surreal journeys. And in this podcast episode, we talked a lot about journeys and healing journeys. But if I were to ask you, everyone has a journey. right? What would you say is your surreal journey?
My journey has been a beautiful emergence of science, spirituality, and most importantly, my own experiences. So it all began with psychology, moved deeply into yoga, spirituality, eventually found myself studying neuroscience because I wanted to understand the biology behind the human transformation. Now, healing doesn't happen through information, it happens through integration. And that's where I must say that my work is about helping people bridge the wisdom of ancient practices and the discovery of modern neuroscience inside themselves.
And if we mention about the unique message, so, in this podcast, you talked a lot about different messages which the audience can gain from. And before we wrap up the interview section of the podcast, I asked all my guests if you could voice one unique message to the world, what would it be?
My message would be you are not broken. I wish I could, shout it out at the top of my lungs. You are not broken. Many of us spend years trying to fix ourselves, the emotions. And when it comes to emotions, our emotions are not the enemy. Anxiety, overwhelm, even the patterns that we carry often, they actually carry information. So the moment we move from self-judgment to self-understanding, that is where healing begins. Greatest of all being learning how to become safe within ourselves.
And so that concludes the interview section of the podcast. But I would like to leave the floor to you, Miss Anjali. If you have any final comments or thoughts you want to leave the audience with, any takeaways, you're more than welcome to. The stage is now yours.
Thank you so much. It was really an interactive, beautiful, heartfelt conversation that we have had today. One thing that I would like to share is that if anything from today that I shared resonates with your audience, I open heartedly invite them. And again, my work is mostly with women. So I do invite you to join my Goddess Yoga Teacher Training. The next cohort starts on 14th September 2026. If there are any more details you need to know. So the information will be there in the podcast. Please do reach out and take away what makes sense. Come back to these conversations. There are a lot of golden nuggets in here, believe me. It was all channeled. Um, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much as well for your time and for coming on today's episode of the podcast. I'm sure my audience learned so much about what you do and all about your journey. And for my audience who has made it to the end of this episode, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family and people who are interested in knowing more about Miss Anjali and what she does, as well as about healing and spirituality and goddess yoga. There's so much golden nuggets that was mentioned in today's episode. So if you are interested, please do share it with everyone around you, your whole close circle. And I hope you did enjoy this video, and I'll see you all for the next video. Goodbye.